Probably for the next 20, 25 minutes or so, we're going to spend a little bit of time to learn more about sort of your story. And I guess, and then the second part will be your thoughts. I thought that we have a very good conversation related to generative AI yesterday, and it's just fascinating to me that how, from a China point of view, is a very different sort of angle and things that we can think about. But how about start with your story? How do you actually get to, from Purdue to Microsoft, and then after years of Microsoft, you decide to join. Why did you decide to join and start a startup after so many years at Microsoft?
Well, first of all, hi everybody. Sorry, excuse me, I'm trying to figure out this self-rotating chair. I keep wanting to face more of the audience. Yeah. This is coming from the guy that claims to be an IoT expert, huh? Yeah, anyway, yeah. Yeah. So, hi everybody. Good to be back in Hong Kong. The COVID in China is finally over. Yeah. So, good to see everyone. See a lot of old friends. My much younger schoolmates. Yeah. Some friends from Microsoft. Anybody from Xiaomi or Xiaomi portfolio companies?
How many of you from Microsoft?
Oh. Yeah, Ivan. Okay. Yes. So good to see you, and thanks for organizing.
Of course.
Yeah. So
thank you for coming.
Yeah. So I will go straight from. Well, I won't tell you the long story of all that Microsoft long journey and then Xiaomi thing. So I figured I would just share with you some of the things that come to my heart whenever I come back to Hong Kong and meet with founders, right? So I grew up in Hong Kong. I grew up in Chin Wan. Went to school in St. Francis Xavier School. Anybody from Chin Wan? Yeah, hi. Chin Wan Sing Fong Zai Zhong Ho. Yeah. So after Form 5, I basically went to the States by joining an exchange student program. Okay, went to a town in the States that is in the middle of nowhere, like 2 hours driving away from Buffalo. So in that year, I got to read a lot. Okay, I got to read a lot of the things that used to be boring for me when I was in Hong Kong. Caught up on reading, and then I was lucky enough to go to Purdue. Purdue is again a great school that's in the middle of nowhere. I don't know if Edith would agree, but the only bar that we used to go to shut down. The last time I went back to visit. Yeah, but it's great to see the same professor that was teaching me CS 101 is still there teaching CS 101 after 25 years. Okay, so he's so passionate.
But did he recognize you?
I made him recognize me. I made him recognize me because anyway. I will share with more story with you, during dinner, Alfred. But I almost get kicked out from computer science, after, the first week in school. I couldn't successfully complete and compile the Hello World program because of, the tab. The tab is supposed to be, that look the same as free spaces, right? But the compiler just hated the tab. Or the free spaces, I don't know. It just won't compile. So I sent email to this professor, like 3 times back and forth. I just sent him, I said I just couldn't compile, and then he said he didn't say the F word, he said just copy and paste this and submit it,
I remember we actually had using Sun Spark Station already. Right?
Yes, we did, yeah. And so the next day he basically said in front of the whole class that, computer science is not for everyone. Yeah. So this time when I went back, I made sure he remembered me. Yeah, I don't think that many students, did that, but I ended up, being top of the class for his class in that. Yeah. Anyway, I was lucky enough to study computer science during the internet era. That's when it first started. I still remember, Edith, do you remember seeing the homepage of our fellow professors when we were there? You were much
I was much younger.
Younger, I know, I'm sure. Yeah. You have already seen other apps, right? But that's when it started, because Professor Douglas Comer from Purdue, he was one of the committee that has designed the TCP/IP protocol, and just give you an idea how about my age, okay? And when I graduated, I was lucky enough to go to the first company that figured out, software, was very key, for the development of the technology. Microsoft. I joined Microsoft in 1997, yeah, and honestly, I didn't expect to spend that much time in one company. I ended up staying there for 13 or 14 years before.
So you moved to Seattle right after
Yes.
Purdue.
Yes.
What was sort of your first product that you were working on when you first joined Microsoft?
I see. So when I first joined Microsoft, I accidentally worked on this thing called MSN, okay? Because I studied networking and OS in school, and I thought it was doing networking, but it turns out that it's a portal. Microsoft Network was not doing networking; it was actually doing portal. But that actually brought me into the sort of the first generation of World Wide Web. Okay, and I told Edith yesterday that my first skip level boss is none other than Satya, okay, which Microsoft just acquired his company. Okay, he was really young, and he was doing the first generation of e-commerce software, Quick Links. It's called Quick Link. I look it up, and so he was my skip level boss. So I ended up working in MSN, spent some years there, and then I moved on to work on Windows. Because after a while, I said, I have to work on something lower level. Okay, the lower, the better. It's so different than nowadays. We try to go as high level as possible. Pretty soon, we don't need to program anymore, right?
So how low did you go?
How low did I go? Oh, okay. So Windows messaging, I was still doing C. I was trying to go to, doing assembly, but they said no. The core, of NT is too critical. We don't want to be touched by anyone, with less than 10 years programming experience, right? But I was happy with just the messaging part, right? And then I went on to work on something called BizTalk. Anybody here heard of
BizTalk?
Anybody here heard of BizTalk? Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm surprised. If you were in the consultant business, you would have heard that, because it used to generate so much revenue for the consultant business. It was as complicated as the IBM WebSphere. So it took a lot of consultants to get it to work. Okay, actually, Ivan is my coworker that also work in BizTalk, so he can tell you. So I started my career building enterprise software. And then I made a change, in 2005. That's when I decided to join Microsoft China. Okay, they were trying to assemble a team, to build Windows Mobile. Okay, as a satellite team for the Windows Mobile team in Redmond. So I always wanted to come back to work in Asia, in China. Okay, I grew up in Hong Kong, but I never worked in China or even Hong Kong. So I realized the mobile industry is definitely booming in China. The internet, is definitely booming there. So I just accepted the offer and joined Microsoft China in.
So you're the reason why Windows Mobile didn't work then?
I'm part of the reason. Yeah. I'm willing to take on that responsibility. Okay. Yeah, but it was great because we actually assembled a very talented, 150, very top engineers team in Windows Mobile in China. Okay, and I personally, had very high time there because we wanted to basically take Microsoft to the mobile industry in China, the mobile internet was booming. I think we actually stand very good chance to do something great there, right? Windows Mobile was actually doing pretty good. It actually had partnership with the Docomo, not Docomo, the HTC phones, right? Were basically using Windows Mobile, and smartphone was, going well with the keyboard. Actually those were pretty good devices. Until Microsoft decided to refocus all the mobile development in Redmond, because it was actually facing huge competition from iPhone. Okay, so they wanted to move the whole team back to Redmond. So at that point, that's when I had to make the decision: do I want to move back and fight the war at the headquarters of Microsoft, or do I want to join the uprising mobile internet wave in China? And that's also when I met Lei Jun and Lin Bing. Lin Bing was the guy that convinced me to go back to China in 2005. They've been kicking around this idea of doing an Android-based smartphone with the internet way, right? And so that's when I met Lei Jun the first time.
And that's 2010.
29, yes,
2009.
And 2009, end of it, right? I still remember talking to Lei Jun and Bin in a cafe, and we spent 5 hours, just talking about products. Okay, we talk about, Lei Jun. For those of you that doesn't know Lei Jun, he was already a very established entrepreneur, right? And CEO, successfully taken Kingsoft to IPO. And when I met with executive, I was expecting him to just tell me about a strategy, to talk about this and that, but I didn't expect him to talk to me about products, hardware and software, right? In so much detail, right? He would just sit down and carry this little black bag with 6 or 7 phones in it, right? He would just lay them all down, right? All the top phones from all the phone makers. He said, KK, what do you think of this phone? You're the one that worked on Windows Mobile, right? Tell me about this. Right. What do you think? What do you think? What's the pros, cons, right? How would you design this differently, right? We talk not just about software, right? But also the hardware and all that. And then it turns out that this guy actually, fought for a lot of the, industrial design, user experience, all that. I was super impressed. And then I said, so what are you guys trying to do? That's when he told me about the Xiaomi, model that he wanted to do, right? When we, so in 2018, we IPO in Hong Kong, right? And when we were doing the roadshow, right, each of us actually had to do a lot of the PPT talk, right, to introduce. The PPT is not that much different from when he first talked about the Xiaomi model, 10 years back, okay? So I think for me, it was not difficult to make that decision. Once I see someone that committed in building products, okay, I'm not impressed by people that is obsessed about building company even. I'm touched by people that wanted to build great product, and he certainly shared that passion with us, right? And so so I was the third guy the third geek to join that.
So told me the story about there's 7 of you, and 7 of you middle-aged men that love, you're all geeks and you just want to build product that you wanted to see and love. What's the thought process of the 7? It's 7, right? 7. Okay, and so I remember you focus on more on the MIUI and on the software side of things. Like how the rest of the team assemble? Like who does what? Why so many founders?
Yeah, if we were given a choice, we would have, gotten 20 founders, because the thing is so freaking difficult, right? You have to do hardware, software. We didn't know anything about supply chain management, right? We don't know anybody from China Mobile, China Telecom. Yeah, we don't even know about manufacturing that much. we certainly didn't know, Guo Taiming, from Foxconn at that point, okay, not yet. So we, in day one, we knew how complicated this thing is, okay? Because, like you said, we were not young, right? The average age for the founders were 40 years old, okay? And so we have a good idea of how difficult a task would be, right? So we really have to bring in all the talents in different domains that we could get, okay? So, I'm not surprised to have 7. If we have a choice, 20 is good, right? But the thing is, the 7 of us have one thing in common. We were, like I said, all geeks. We were like gadget enthusiasts, right? That's why when I see Lei with 6 or 7 phones, right? That's basically telling me that he's a geek, right? And I would, play with, gadgets, like crazy myself. So the 7 of us, see this opportunity where, hey, we are given this opportunity to build our own super smartphone, okay? At that point, it's unimaginable, right? Because we imagine only, big companies dare to go into this red ocean. Motorola, we were, looking at Motorola, Samsung, Apple, right? What have you, right? Even for the companies in China, those are the big guys like Huawei, Lenovo, right? Those guys. So for a little company to dare to take on this thing, right? We give credit to all the investors that were willing to support us in the beginning. Yeah.
So to put sort of the timeline, so you formed the company in 2010 and launched the first phone 2011.
2011, yes.
Right.
Yep.
So the first Android phone was HTC in 2008. So this is like 3 years later after the first Android phone being launched. And I remember when you first launched, I think when you first started this, we had this conversation in Beijing. Yes. And I remember asking you, why in the world would you do a hardware company? Because it's so hard. But you went ahead and did it anyway. But I did remember it was a very great success because it was sort of the first sort of phone where you do complete online promotion, which is rare at the time because even in China in those days, usually you get like a special contract from China Mobile, China Unicom, or Telecom. And so what exactly worked for that launch?
Yeah, so basically, now going back to what we talked about in that 5 hours, what did Lei Jun said and what did we tell the investor 10 years down the road is we believe that if we were able to build a phone that's got the most cutting edge software and hardware, okay, that has got very good user experience, top user experience, high quality, yet you manage to make it so affordable to the mass market, so that everyone can afford to buy it, right? Back then, we're talking about, if you want to get a top-end Motorola phone, Samsung phone, it would cost maybe, 6,000, 7,000 RMB, okay? Even more so for iPhone, okay? When we launched this, we managed to use all the top-end components, okay? You just name it, right? People didn't believe it. We were able to use, all the top-end components. We had to beg, each of the supplier to give us a chance, right? But when we launched, right, we launched it, that's not only on par, but potentially exceeding the competitor's flagship product. Yet we released it at 2,000 RMB. So the launch release, right? When we do the release, a lot of media in the room, right? That was the first time ever in my career seeing media people jump up after we announced the price. Okay, we didn't hire. Of course, you cannot hire them to do that. You cannot hire them to do anything, right? But they literally just jump up, and that's the reaction from the media. Can you imagine, right? So you can also imagine from the users, right? At first, people actually had doubt because let's face it. Going back 12 years, 12 years, 15 years, most of the products we see from Chinese company were very, low quality. Okay, they were not, they were cheap, right? But they were very low quality, right? So it actually set a very, very negative bar for any company that wants to produce good products in China. That's when we went in, right? Many people doubted, basically have doubts about our products. They had to take apart the phone to examine, hey, did you really use this memory? Did you really use this touch panel? Did you use this camera? Did you use this CPU? And finally, they believe us, right? And that's why, when we do the online sale, that's all we need, because we couldn't produce fast enough anyway, right? And whenever we start the sale online, right, it became a flash sale, right? People accuse us for inventing this, right? For inventing this 機外營銷, right? We deliberately, didn't produce enough, but no. It was due to our lack of ability, right? We really couldn't produce, to meet that demand. But yeah.
That's awesome. And I think, and there's another unique thing, and thank you for sending all this stuff this morning. And I think one of the things also unique is that how every week you actually do an update for the OS, which is like the software part that you run, right? Which is very, very unusual compared to all the other Android phones that I've been using at the time. Like, what's the thought process? Why is there so much stuff to update?
Okay, so I remember when we were growing up as kids, right? For me, I was a big fan of Sony products, right? I love their Walkman. I love their, DVD player, right? The video cam, right? Later on, PlayStation. But, have you ever come across an experience where, hey, you wish, this button is done differently, this feature is done differently, but you have no channel of giving feedback to Sony? I certainly don't know the email address of Akio, okay? But we never have this channel. So when we built Xiaomi, we think, hey, is it possible for us to co-develop these products with our users, right? And before Xiaomi, right, each phone, after it released, it probably will have a couple firmware, release, half a year, in between, mainly to fix bugs, right? Rarely adding any new feature. So we start this process where we basically, do a OS upgrade weekly, okay? And then we take feedback from the users that is willing to participate, to upgrade and give us, for example, we ask them, given this 10 features, rank which one do you want, the most? You have to rank them, because otherwise they will take them all, right? With that, we got to understand, what are the, real features users want, right? Coming from, well, no offense to Microsoft, I really learned so much from Microsoft, but, it's also in a big company with so many resources where we had the, overconfidence to lock ourselves in a room and imagine what are the features we need for the next version. And then we spend the next 2 years, 3 years to work on those features that we come up with, imagine, among ourselves, in the office, right? So with Xiaomi, we don't have that many resources. Yeah. We don't have that many developers, right? So we have to rely on our users to give us this co-development feedback. And this when we did this, and then it worked magic, because our fans really appreciate our respect for their feedback, right? This become a ongoing product design, which we repeat for our other products, and also the same for our portfolio companies.
And then fast forward a few years later, that obviously worked really well with the smartphone. Is it probably 2014, 2015 then, you started now explored smart TV, router, and now is like all these other smart devices. What's the thought process there?
So when we first started building Xiaomi, right, we were a bunch of geeks that basically wanted to build things that we wanted for ourselves, right? And of course, we wouldn't stop at just phones, right? After we built the phones and we became more knowledgeable about manufacturing, supply chain management, right? We start to question, some of the products, we see in the market at that time, right? Does this product really have to be so uneasy to use? And does this really have to be so unintelligent, right? Why can't I connect with this, IoT device? Well, it was not IoT device, just devices, right? Why is this so expensive? right? And then we see opportunity for us to basically innovate in other consumer electronics, right? But of course, we only have so much resource. We have to focus in our, a few of the core devices. For the rest, we start to come up with a way. I think we innovate in building this so-called, IoT ecosystem, where we incubate and invest in other companies where we think, those great experts, great, geeks like us, were able to build in their category, a great product that also agree with the product development philosophy that we have. Yeah, and that's why, now when you go into a Xiaomi store, you probably see a lot of products, right? Hopefully, each one of them, would, give you, high user experience, good quality, just like, the rest of the product. Because we're not trying to build everything, on our own. We try to work with, these partners, great partners, to produce, what you call it, the best of breed for their category. Yeah, we become the channel only.
So now you basically turn the whole household from dumb device to smart device. And then at the same time, there's a whole OS, basically the MIUI that apply for all of them. And today, as I last checked in 2022, I think Xiaomi sold over 150 million phones worldwide. It's now expanded to Southeast Asia, India, and I personally use the Xiaomi smart device. Wait, actually. How many of you actually have a Xiaomi device at home? Oh, that is so awesome.
Thank you.
Cool. If those of you, there is a shop in Causeway Bay. I took my mother there. All right, so I want to sort of switch topic from your story of Xiaomi to now, let's talk about your thoughts on AI. And I want to combine this conversation is because right now there aren't a lot of conversation related to mobile and all the generative AI conversation yet.
Yes.
And it would be so interesting to combine the context, location context, time, and all these things with, but in general, what's happening with Gen AI in China? You certainly, like in the US, you hear things about OpenAI, which is now basically Microsoft in some sense, which is a very, very smart move from Satya's point of view. And then there's Stable Diffusion, which is, to me, is sort of the iOS and Android. And of course, Google invested, I think, 300 million in something called Anthropic. And by the way, all these all happened in the last 7 days and had like new releases when all these, banking crisis, all the bank falling apart, like all this AI stuff is literally happening as we speak. And Google published what is called the Palm API, and everything happened, literally everything happened everywhere all at once. All right, mic drop. What's happening? Like, what's your thought? How you see like all this is going on, and meanwhile, what's going on in China? Or Baidu is trying to do something. I don't know about that. And what's your thoughts?
Okay, so this might be a little bit long answer, if you don't mind. I've been in the industry long enough, right, to follow this AI path. Back in the old days when we were studying artificial intelligence in Purdue, right, they were teaching us the tree-based, logical tree, right? Expert system. The moment I see that, I drop out from that class. I said, that's a fake AI, right? Yeah, it was disappointing, right? Because machine learning was, just, emerging, and, they didn't have the compute and the big data to prove that is valid. So fast forward, right, to 2015, okay? That's when we started building this Xiaomi Technology, the AI, expert being built by Xiaomi, right? I was, building this AI platform along with the IoT platform. Those were my teams.
Xiaomi Technology is part of in the phone that come with?
So Xiaomi Technology is a separate team. It's basically a cloud team, right? But it actually, is gateway through the phone, the TV, or the Yingxiang, the speaker, right? So think of that as basically just a software agent, right? But I can make it work with any devices that we produce, right? But phone, of course, was the main gateway, right? So when we evaluate all the AI path or technology existing at that time, I actually made a visit with my team, right, to visit Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, Google, of course, and we also look into OpenAI, right? Because they each have different, tools and system to build this AI, and we ended up, using mostly from Google, TensorFlow, and all that, right? That was also the first time when, the industry was looking at OpenAI to see what they were doing. At the time, they were basically saying, okay, our goal is to solve prediction. Okay, our goal is to be able to make it to predict the next word or the next pixel, right? And how do you do it? We're just going to, get as much data as we could, as compute as we could, and then this problem will be solved. Okay, at that point, I think most people think it's not very credible, and most people, especially from the AI research community, didn't see that as too practical because at that point, even 6 months ago, people still didn't believe it, right? People still believe that in order to do image recognition accurate enough, you have to do this domain-specific training. Okay, in order to do the NLP, you have to do this. Even for English, they think you have to do the NLP training for English in a very different way than you do it for Chinese. Okay, that's how the traditional AI expert were going into. But OpenAI basically, took a completely different approach. They took a quite brute force approach. Okay, they basically think that we already have enough of the research papers by 2016. All we need is just to a lot of data, scale up the data, scale up the compute, and they proved to be accurate, right? 6 months ago, since GPT 3.5. Now, everyone is paranoid, right? Because they are actually proving that this is really general purpose generative AI. It's not some programmable AI. Okay, it's not vertical specific AI, and that's why people are very paranoid, right? You see programmer paranoid because it's actually writing code, right? It's actually doing art design. So that is also the time when we actually see all these major releases from different companies, right? This morning, NVIDIA just dropped a bomb, right, by releasing, what's it called, L4 or N4? I can't remember, but they basically just released a super powerful, cloud GPU. That's basically allowing anyone, if you wanted to do LLM, right, you can do it with much cheaper costs. Okay, so we see, so in the US, I'm glad Microsoft actually has led the way, right? My 老东家, right? So proud of Microsoft, but I think OpenAI sort of, given the history that I just mentioned, you can tell why OpenAI were able to top the US market by surprise, because I think all the major guys didn't expect that to be so successful. But now they're all trying to catch up, right? Well, with the Berrimont in China, it's the other story, because this is already proven. By the time they see this, everyone basically have no hesitate. They don't hesitate to put in the money, to put in the machines and all the engineers. So I think and also just to add, I think this technology is not like the traditional AI, where we actually have a lot of the expertise and domain knowledge, IP, locked in different company. This time, I think OpenAI was quite open when they built this company. If you look at their research index, they have released over 157 papers since 2016. They have given most of the recipes to the rest of the company. So it's not a matter of you still have to hire 100 researchers to reinvent it. This is becoming an engineering problem. Okay, so I would not be surprised to see more than one LLP coming out in US, more than one LLP equally powerful, coming out from China. Okay, I sort of expect it to be more like the cloud computing that we have seen in the last 10 years, right? You don't see just, cloud computing from one vendor. They compete because, Amazon and Azure, they compete with each other, right? And they're so good for the developers. We got to choose, okay? So I think the same is going to happen in China, and I think we just have to figure out how to really embrace this instead of, fearing it. I think that's basically the conversation probably most of the people, in this room have been having the last few weeks. Yeah.
So what's your prediction then, like in terms of sort of the growth on the Gen AI space in China? In some sense, it's kind of cool to hear that basically OpenAI made Microsoft great again. What needs to happen to make Baidu great again, or Alibaba, or Tencent? Any prediction, or Xiaomi?
Well, let me talk about Xiaomi. Yeah. Well, no. I think for Xiaomi the answer will be a little bit different. Hopefully a little bit easier, right? Because Xiaomi is different from the other companies you just mentioned, right? We have quite a lot of devices in the market, right? For household, you know that we're working on EVs, right? We're working on robotics, right? So I can imagine, down the road when this generative AI this agent becomes smarter and smarter, you still need a hardware to interact with, right? To a gateway, so that you can talk to your digital assistant, right? So I think hopefully the story for Xiaomi of how to, make their product smarter is more straightforward. But for the others, I wouldn't worry too much about the super big companies. Each of their core business will just become much more better or smarter, with this thing, right? I'm sure this is going to help to make the e-commerce much more effective, to make the conversion much more, efficient. It's going to make, Toutiao's, knowledge, provider work, much better. The same for Baidu. We already see, users, we engage with the Baidu, set of products. I wouldn't worry too much about those big guys. But I think, just like this morning, I told you, we've been expecting, the image creation, from Adobe,
Yeah, it's
right?
amazing.
Yeah, of course. Each one of them is going to maintain their, core business, by embracing this, right? So I don't think we need to worry about those big guys, right? I think our focus can be, more about, hey, what's the new opportunity, for, we have a lot of founders here, right? Or instead of trying to ask the same question, as we would the last 1 year, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, the scope of the problem that we were trying to solve probably match with the capability that we think our companies would have to solve, right? We wouldn't dare to dream too big, right, before this thing, right? But now I think the landscape has changed, right? Before, if you were to ask me, hey, KK, do you think you can, come up with, this medicine that can cure lung cancer? Before, my answer for you is, one, I'm not an expert in this area. Second, it would cost a lot to build this, research team and, all this engineering to do, right? I would hesitate to tell you, this is doable. But now, if you ask me that question again, I think the answer would be a, much more optimistic consideration, right? If I have the passion to do that, right? Now, I think AI have just, bridging the gap between, dreamer and highly skilled set people, professionals, right? I no longer have to have, all the knowledge in the world. I can actually tap into this, super AI to solve those big problems. So I think the question that we can start asking as founders would be quite different than before. In the last 10 years, probably only a few guys is as crazy as Elon Musk to dare to dream, right? When he built, SpaceX, he's not a rocket scientist, right? He had to assemble all these engineers, from scratch. So to do it took him, 15 years, 16 years to get to where he is, right? But can you imagine if he had this AI capability, right? I read somewhere that says the CTO of SpaceX claimed that the program, being done in SpaceX, 80% is being done by AI already. I don't know how true is that, but I would not be surprised, right? Give it another 3 years, each of us will have access to our Jarvis. Jarvis is the super AI for Iron Man, right? So I guess it would be so different. I think I start to imagine a very different, way of thinking entrepreneurship as well as investment because of that. Otherwise, I would be too pessimistic, worrying that AI will take over everything, right? If it happened, so be it. But what if it didn't happen, right? We can actually use this tool to solve much bigger problem. Yeah, that would be more fun.
That's really great news from Hong Kong in some sense, because in the past we talked, there's not enough engineers in Hong Kong, but if a lot of these things could be built by AI, so as long as you have a vision, everything can be done much more easier.
Thank you guys, I really enjoyed this.
Thank you. Yeah, so to wrap up, thank you for coming, and please say hi to Cindy, who's the brother team for our video, and the lady in blue. And then also say hi to Mei Mei and Nathan, and thank you, Lincoln, for hosting us. I think next month we very likely will be doing go back to the online Zoom webinar. So please sign up and find us the next event on foundershk.com. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.